How do we use data? How can we learn behavioral analytics through our data? And how can we use it and engage it for further business growth in our sectors and in our respective companies and industries? The objective for today will be to share best practices about what other people are doing in the financial sector, in other financial markets, to share knowledge on how Rwandan financial sector can capitalize on these best practices, to discuss existing challenges, but also opportunities in leveraging data analytics, and to inspire innovation and actionable insights. The LEAD series is all about engaging, inspiring, and ensuring that we leave here with actionable insights that we can take back to our organizations, our respective entities, and ensure that we move forward with it. We hope that by the end of today, you will have increased awareness of the transformative power of data analytics. We'll have enhanced collaboration between institutions and yourselves, also intra-institution. I know all institutions have data departments, IT departments. How can you best leverage your experts? Identification of actionable strategies that can be taken away and implemented in the next year or so. And also to galvanize increased interest and investment in data analytics initiatives. Today's day and age, there's no better time in history, right? We've never known so much about our consumers, our customers, than today. Everyone has a phone, engaging in online banking, engaging with apps. How do we move and use the data that we relay for our own benefits of our entities? So, without further ado, the agenda for today will be our introduction, a welcome remark. We'll have a wonderful keynote presentation as well as an expert presentation. Then it will open up to a panel discussion where we will discuss with few key players in the financial sector the role of data analytics in their organizations, the potential and the challenges. And we'll then open up the floor for discussions, for questions from the audience. And we will close out then with our Chief Programs Officer of Access to Finance Rwanda, who will then lead us into a networking cocktail. So we hope this will be engaging, it will be interactive. We really want to make sure that you will leave here with actionable results and insights, and that we really have a productive conversation here. Thank you for having me. And before we get into the program itself, we're going to do a small exercise. So if you all, I hopefully have your phone with you. I hope everyone has topped up on data. If not, Kigali Marriott Wi-Fi is available. We're going to do a small exercise. Would you please share the code? If everyone could go to slido.com, SLIDO.com. And we wanted to test and kind of take a temperature of the room. When you get onto the website, slido.com, please put in this PIN, the number that you see at the bottom, hashtag 1254040. This will take you to very brief questions, 2 questions. We'd love to see your responses to these questions. So I'll give you a minute or 2 before we showcase the results. I'll give everyone another minute. Is anyone having any difficulties accessing? Great. And once everyone has responded, we'll have the results up on the slide. Great. As we populate the results, I do want to get a sense of who we have in the room here. Do we have representatives of the banking institution? Please raise your hand. Anyone with the banks? Madam Rose? Seems your whole Bank of Kigali is holding down the entire banking industry of Kigali. Fantastic. Insurance? Do we have any insurance professionals here? Yes. Welcome, gentlemen. You are the ones who make sure that we are peace of mind, as they say. Thank you very much. Anyone with microfinance? Any oh, very good, excellent, thank you, welcome very much. Welcome very much, welcome. Any DFIs? Advisories? Yes. Business operations, accountants. These gentlemen should be here. All right, we're ready for the results, Nelson? All right. So the question is, in what ways do you see data-driven innovations transforming the financial sector? We have improved risk management, increased operational efficiency, enhanced customer personalization. And everyone said, 84% of you said all of the above. I could see 9% have seen that it is useful to improve risk management, correct? And also to increase operational efficiency. What I find interesting is the 0% under the customer personalization. So I'm hoping that it's the 84% that is representing that, because data is essential for personalization and the delivery of customer-centric products. Thank you very much. I think we can go to question number 2. Slido.com. All right. As we figure this out, anyone else that I left out on the financial sector or industry? Who else is here that I have not mentioned? Excuse me? Research institutions. Thank you very much. Excellent. Because we are at that time in history where we are actually also actively learning, right? Actively understanding what could we be doing. Very welcome, sir. Anyone else? Yes, please. National switch. This is telecommunications, if I'm correct. No? Payment platforms? Payment platforms. Thank you very much. Welcome. Excellent that you're here. Thank you. Anyone else that I may have missed? I know we have IT in the house. IT consultants? Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else I may have missed? I did not see a lot of hands going up here. All right. But I think we've covered everyone. In one word, what does data mean in the context of your organization? We have asset. We have, if I might say, data. 5 people answered data. What does data mean in the context? Data is information in what we do in our daily life as insurance business. Absolutely. Insurance is heavily data-centric. Work done and achievement to facilitate evaluation. Evaluation external or internal? We'll maybe hear more about that. Inform our decisions, drive decisions. I hear a couple of you see terminologies coming back. Information, information for decision-making, information for evaluation, the oil in our engine. I do not know who wrote this. Who wrote the oil in our engine? If I may call them out. That is such a deep statement. That's why I wanted to deep dive into that. Collection of valuable information, insights. So it's information, insights, decision-making, impact, high productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency. Measurement, that's the first one. Measurement, similar to evaluation. Information again. Decision-making again, a decision-making. Catalyst and fuel. This is the same oil in our engine. You guys are in the same vehicle, huh? I love that. Facts and statistics, decision-making. Transactions. This is the first one we've seen. Data is transactional. How do you make it transactional? Asset, key. Power, yes. Data is power. Leverage, value, essential. Understanding your customers perhaps. Excellent. Thank you. I think that we can pause here. So what we see a lot is information, that it is an asset, that it helps in decision making, that it fuels the entities, and most importantly, that it is the power behind what we do today. So it's a fantastic, I think, start. I see everyone is kind of in the same similar boat and understanding, but now we want to deep dive into how do we use data, how do organizations use data, and really pull out those insights that we can take home with us. So without further ado, thank you very much for engaging in this exercise. I'd like to invite a gentleman that needs really no further introduction, but does deserve it. This is Mr. John Bosco Yachu, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Access to Finance Rwanda and has served the organization over 7 years in implementation financial inclusion programs and developing the financial sector. Welcome, Mr. Yachu. Please give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon. A bit louder, the energy is not there. Cocktail should have come earlier, probably. Good. Distinguished guests, a very good afternoon to you all. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who is here present for really honoring our invitation. When you send emails, you are not sure who will come and who will not. So when you come, it's our duty to say thank you for coming. I presume that you have well understand, and you have understood the fact that when you stop learning, you stop growing. And I want to add another word. You also stop leading. So this lead series that we have, and we started last year, is really to ensure that we empower you with knowledge and insights that will drive decisions, but also, most importantly, will drive growth of your businesses. So this topic of today is unleashing the power of data in the financial sector, a sector that is close to our heart. That's what we do every day. And this is the first learning event in a series of many events planned this year. So stay tuned, because every month we want to have an event that really is just providing insights and learning to the different stakeholders that we have. As you have seen, the tagline on Lead Series is really to make sure that we increase learning among us, but also facilitate engagement between our stakeholders, but also not only learning and engaging, but also taking necessary actions for us to develop the Rwandan financial sector so as to be more inclusive and beneficial to majority of low-income people and MSMEs across the country. And this is very key, because we have been seeing traditional models, but those traditional models probably are not giving us very good insights. So we need disruption in the market. And you cannot disrupt if you don't have knowledge. And you cannot have knowledge if you don't leverage the power of data analytics. So as you may know, for those who attended our last Read Series event last year with Olivia, I don't know whether we were here as well. I think it was Marriott as well. And that time we launched this Lead Series, and we had a very interesting study, which was on gendered social norms and how they impact, or they are impacting financial exclusion of women and girls. I've been checking with my data team, and what they tell me is that this study is already being used by many stakeholders in the ecosystem, and they're using it to frame their interventions, and very meaningful interventions, but also really trying to empower women and girls, but taking into account the social, the gender, the social norms, because it's very critical that you understand all those constraints that women and girls face, and after understanding, then you know how to serve them better. And I must confess from our side that before that study, we were doing the business as usual thing that everyone does, where you report numbers of women and girls that you have reached, you have served, but you don't know whether after a few months, when they open that account, when they got that loan, they are still using that account, or whether actually that loan is improving their livelihood. So you don't know. And that's really critical because, and I'll give you one case where, yes, we supported a financial product. This lady got a loan, quick, and we had actually removed some barriers. And those barriers were where you are required to have your spouse to come and sign and clear that loan for you. And in business, it's very hard. If the husband doesn't, or the partner doesn't have same understanding, he may not sign. And that's a power control. You will not get the loan. So that time, what happened, she got this loan, and next day, the shop was refilled with stock, and the husband was in shock to see the stock refilled, and he didn't know where it came from. And what happened, it was a discussion. Say, well, how come this stock is here? I said, well, I refilled it. How? I need to know where the money came from the bank. How come the bank allowed this loan to come without me coming to sign? Say, well, the bank has relaxed some conditions, so it's here. And we should reflect and rejoice that we have the goods here and we are trading. And the husband was not happy. And later on, we had to, I think he had to request, he requested that he sees the contract without his signature. So you understand, those constraints are there. But for you to know them, you need to be deliberate and understand them, because not actually ticking the box of, yes, I have a product or service, then I send it. Everyone takes it, but you don't know what is happening thereafter. So it's very important that we leverage data to understand that. So mine was just to welcome you, and I wanted to stop so that really we provide time for engagement and discussions. And we are so glad as AFR team to host you all here this afternoon. And I wish you all an engaging and very productive learning session ahead. And as I close, allow me to leave you with this quote that is very important in terms of data analytics by Mr. Thomas Redman. They call him, they have a nickname of Data Doc. As we reflect on this conversation, please note this quote: where there is data smoke, there is business fire. where there is data smoke, there is business fire. So we are here for business. We are here for not just insights, but insights that translate into actions, and actions that actually move us into the next steps. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iwachu. That is a profound statement, and without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Lualu Akindele, who's the technology consulting partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. Please give him your hand as he walks up. Mr. Lualu has been in the technology consulting business in Kenya and in the East Africa market, as well as in West Africa, and has over 17 years gained experience. So please, we're really, really privileged to have you. Thank you very much. And we want to hear about the data smoke and the business fire that you have encountered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivia, and thank you, AFR, for this opportunity. Good afternoon to every one of you. Thanks for making time for this. My name is Laulu Akindele, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about. So I lead our technology unit, and data is a very important aspect of what we do. I have been a data analyst. I was a banker in my previous life. I'm a consultant now, so I've also worked with a telco, gotten experience with a telco, so I would sort of just walk you through what we are seeing from an insights perspective, talk to you about how people are utilizing data within the financial services sector, also highlight the barriers. So while a lot of people talk about data, a lot of people are not aware of the journey you have to walk through to be able to get insights, to be able to push dashboards, and basically talk to you about what you can do to unleash the power of data within the financial services sector. So I'll start with some insights that we've decided to share with you. And these insights are from various sources, including PwC. So we have a global annual survey we do for CEOs, and we also got insights from CEOs in East Africa. And what you'll see there is a number of institutions. 65% of them mentioned that they can see improvements in fraud risk management due to big data. From the Financial Times Live, you would also see a number of businesses in the banking industry talking about 8% more revenue. So this is global, and 10% less operating costs. And when you look at the second line, you're seeing about 82% of finance companies planning to increase their data budgets in the next 3 years. And I'm sure you can relate to this. When you're looking at the growth rates in the adoption of big data, also quite significant. So we've seen a significant growth in the last 5 years. So that's looking at 2015 to 2020. You'd also see a number of institutions, about 95% of them, attributing these investments to revenue growth in their business, and 68% talking about they are able to use this to derive insights, which they can then use to improve their service to their customers. And when you look at the survey we conducted, so the results just came out last month. So when you look at East Africa, we're seeing CEOs talking about the need to invest. So investing in training around cloud, big data, artificial intelligence. So those are some of the insights that we've gathered. And when I move on, I think what we want to talk about is the data opportunity. And I believe we're at different stages when it comes to data. For some people, it's just a buzzword. For some people, we've made the investments, we're not seeing value. For some of us, we've tried to, and we actually had to stop because we couldn't proceed. So it's just to really unpack it and also help you understand that we are seeing value, and there are a number of financial institutions that are actually getting value from the investments in data. People are unlocking valuable insights, they are making informed decisions, they're improving their customer experience, they're managing risks effectively, and people are also using data to actually come up with products that they can take to their customers. So I'll talk briefly about some of the use cases and some of the examples that we are seeing in the region and also at Africa. So if you move to the next slide, you would see when we look at our predictive analytics, credit scoring is an interesting one. So you're seeing people putting in early warning systems so that they can assess your credit worthiness and also so they can predict loan risk more accurately. I'll give an example of a fintech that I met about 4 years ago. So they set up shop in Kenya and they subsequently set up shop in Nigeria. And what they were doing, so it was the first time I was actually seeing how they are able to onboard a customer and in the same hour give a customer a loan. And that's because they're looking at so many data points. So you've got someone, you register with your phone, but in the back end, the system is looking at what phone are you using, what type of calls, how often do you make calls, how often do you top up, how often do you send messages, what's the duration of your calls. And when I was speaking to them, they said, we have more than 300 data points that allow us to make instant decisions. And something else we're then saying is, as a financial institution, how am I partnering with, an example would be a telco. So you've seen banks that then move ahead to say, how do I partner with a telco to be able to make these decisions in a quick manner? So there's a big bank in Kenya that has done that with a telco successfully. And what they're able to do is roll out quick loans because there's so much data they have that they can get from the mobile money service provider. So it's one thing to say I have access to your calls, your data, but then another thing which is valuable is actually your transactions. So if I look at MTN, for example, or I look at any other telco, what kind of transaction volume do they have access to? They really can tell a lot about what you do. So looking at the transaction details to say, okay, this is where you spend, maybe every Friday, Laulu is at a particular bar, maybe every month, Laulu is investing in a particular thing. So there's value to derive from collaboration. So we don't need to look at them as competitors. We need to see how we can work with them so that we can then derive more value and also provide more value to our customers. I was also speaking to a telco way back, and we talked about even simple things like knowing where people are concentrated at a particular point in time. So, you know, if there's too much congestion in a place, they can actually tell. And they were talking about using such things, even without using the data. So it's more of batch data. But I can say, oh, every day at 7 p.m., how come there's so many people in this place? So you can then use that to do, depending on the industry you're in, it can be something you're then using to do targeted adverts, or you're noticing that there's something happening there, and as a financial institution, I'm asking myself, should I have an ATM there, or should I have a bank there, or something? So collaboration would also help you make useful decisions, and you can derive a lot of value when you collaborate with other parties. Enhancing your customer understanding. How many of us really know our customers? So I'm in insurance. How do I decide what products that I should take to my customer? How do I determine my pricing strategy? More often than not, we really don't understand our customers. And that's because we don't have a lot of data to actually help us do that. So you really need to think about the quality of data you're getting and how you're then able to really understand customers to be able to sell value to them. I've seen banks that really do a lot when it comes to understanding customers. I've got a bank in Nigeria, so I moved from Nigeria about 13 years ago to Kenya. I have two banks that I bank with in Nigeria. They do not even check what I do. In fact, I stopped using one of them and nobody reached out. The second one is because I don't have another bank. And there's simple things you can tell. So you can always look at, why is it that Laulu sends transactions or it does a transfer once every month? What is this telling me? Why is it that Laulu always sends money to a particular number? So I send money to my mom every month and it's consistent. But those are things that you can look at and say, okay, what do we know about this customer? What should we be telling this customer? but they've never reached out. But if another bank reaches out and says, oh, we've got something, and they show they understand me, I'll move. So those are things that you sometimes need to think about. Some of them are not even complex. It's just basic data, basic analytics, personalized marketing. I've seen a bit of that. So you've got customers, their money sits in your bank, you don't do anything about it. One day the guy decides to close his account, everybody is running up and down saying, oh, we need to keep him. Do we really understand, and do we reach out to them at the right time? So do we offer personalized marketing to them? I bank with a bank in Kenya that will reach out and say, we noticed that you've kept money for a while, there's this bond, are you interested in investing? Sometimes it's, oh, do you want to take a loan? And it's not just guesswork, it's tied to what they are saying within my transactions. And also the pattern they can observe. When it comes to customer lifeline, same thing I talked about, do we know when your customer is about to churn? Or we just wait until they leave? And you can actually tell when a customer is about to churn if you are paying attention to the details, you are paying attention to the transactions. So that's something else to think about. Customer segmentation, very interesting topic. So typically most people just say, high net worth customers, they go to, okay, mid-tier customers, they go to the low customers. But do we know more than that? Are you able to really segment your customers properly to know, okay, this is a high net worth customer, but what else do I know about this customer? Some of us have useful data that we don't use. So more often than not, I would pay with my credit card, and my credit card will tell you a lot about what I'm doing, but to what extent are we actually using that to derive insights? Same thing in an insurance company. How do we determine who our customer is and what we're taking to them? The general rule of thumb most of us follow is a bank or an insurance company or a financial assets company releases a product, the next month all of us do the same without really understanding whether there's value in it and what it really means to our customers. Same thing with product development. Are you able to really analyze the data and then say, from a product's perspective, this is something we should take to our customers? So I'm challenging you to think about that as you think about potential use cases, the customer experience. I have customers that keep walking into my branch. I have customers that are very big on using my mobile platform, big on using my internet banking platform. Can I really make sense of it? Am I using it to then say, okay, how do I improve the experience? Fraud is a big one. You see a lot of fraud in the banking sector, in the insurance sector, practically every sector within this space. And to what extent are we really using data to identify trends? Because more often than not, you can detect a trend and say, okay, this is an unusual pattern, or this looks suspicious. How do we respond to it? So that's also a gap and something to think about. When it comes to the risk management side, which is the next slide, when it comes to managing risk, also your data will tell you a lot. You can understand what has happened in the past and what you need to think about in the future. You can also have early warning signs, because you would always be able to predict when something is off. How are we using this data and how are we responding? Fraud detection, prevention, I've talked about that. Still a big topic. There's something we're doing for a client, and they didn't know that they actually had an issue. So somebody back end had reconfigured the credit card system such that every time you put a negative number, you can then withdraw money. And somebody kept withdrawing money every month, and nobody knew. He was just using his credit card, so he never breached his limits. And it was only picked because he used it at a different bank, and the bank noticed that something was off, and they realized the guy had made over $80,000 in just like 6 months. So it's also, how are we really using all the data we have, and how are we investing to be able to derive valuable insights and manage our risks as a business. When it comes to compliance also, speaking to the regulator, so the number of reports you need to send, accuracy of the reports becomes important, timeliness of the reports becomes important. Are we set up in a way that we're able to extract the right data and also provide the right information? to our regulator or to our partners. When it comes to the barriers to data, next slide, there's quite a lot. And I would not tell you it's an easy journey. There's a client that we're doing work with. It's a very large bank, and they came and said, oh, we're ready to do data transformation. We can't wait to see dashboards. Everybody says dashboards. People talk about analytics. And I can see a lot of people smiling because every time people are talking data, that's the endpoints people are talking about. But you don't understand the journey. So we get in and we realize they don't have the right data. So data quality then becomes a problem. So you want to capture specific data, but the system and the way it has been set up only has maybe 4 fields, and you need like 10 fields to be able to make the right decision. So you get into trouble quickly. So the data then becomes a problem. You've got issues around the quality of the data. Data privacy is a big thing. So while we have access to data, we also need to think about, can I really use this data? How do you anonymize data? What are the restrictions around the use of your customer data? Cybersecurity is a big one because for financial services institutions, you're a prime target for people. If I'm able to get a hold of your data and I sell it, or I get your data and I just put it in the news, or I have this insurance company's data, it's a problem. It becomes a reputational risk. So when you're thinking about that data utilization, it goes hand in hand with privacy, it goes hand in hand with cybersecurity. Legacy systems, big issue. So people have systems that cannot even pull data. Some people have systems that cannot be integrated with another system. So you've got the data residing in one system and you're just stuck and you cannot make meaningful decisions. A lot of people will come to you and say, oh, we need a data warehouse, we need a data lake. You make that investment, but you realize, how do I actually get data into this thing? And then you're stuck and it becomes a problem. So that's another big barrier. Data quality and integrity, I've talked about it. You also have culture. Culture is a big one. So do we have the right culture? Is it a data-driven culture? When it comes to culture also, as a customer, do I want to give you my data? Do I feel comfortable releasing my data to you? So there's also the privacy aspect that they think about. Skills is a big one. So we know there's a huge demand for people with data skills, but we still don't have enough people. I'll give an example of what we did as PwC about 3-4 years ago. So we came up with a data program for everybody, from the least staff to the most senior staff, and we signed everybody up for Power BI and Alteryx, and everybody had something they needed to do. So depending on your level, you'd have to go through a course within a particular timeline just to ensure that people are skilled when it comes to data, and the number of people then use that in their day-to-day activities. So that's also a consideration you can make. Regulatory compliances. The regulator is not your enemy. Huh? The regulator has to work with you. And some of the good practices I've seen in the market, so I look after East Africa region, is collaborating with the regulator. So how do we get them involved? Because more often than not, it is up to us to also help them and educate them. So more often than not, if I don't understand what you're doing, I'm just going to wake up one day and say no. I'm going to say, oh, you cannot proceed with this. So work with the regulators and also work as an industry to push the agenda. Cost is it's expensive, trust me. If you are embarking on a data journey, there's a significant financial outlay that you need to think about. And this means you need to get the buy-in of the right people. So at management level, do people understand and appreciate this? At board level, is there an appreciation of this requires a significant cost outlay, and we're committed to become a data-driven organization? Algorithm bias. So when it comes to data, you've got all these biases, and you could have data that is not representative of the full population, and you're making decisions based on that, and then you then have decisions you're making that are inaccurate, or you're making decisions that are improper. So those are some of the barriers that you need to think about when you're thinking about data utilization. But I want to encourage you and tell you there are strategies you can use to unleash data potential. I think one of the big things you would see is, on the next slide, is around the investments you make in data platform. So when I look at financial services institution, one big thing I'm saying is the adoption of cloud, because when you are focused more on on-premise infrastructure and you are looking at a data journey, what would happen to you is you get to the point where you process so many transactions, and the next thing we're talking about, oh, we need to invest in more servers. But cloud is very scalable, so I'm seeing a lot of adoption of cloud to be able to then drive that scalability. There are also a number of tools you need to think about, because when you talk about the volume of data you're trying to analyze, you also need to invest in the right tools for you to be able to derive the right insights. Integration is a big one. So when it comes to integration, you're looking at internal integration and also external integration. So some people reach out and say, okay, what external information do I want to integrate with what I have to be able to give my customer a better picture? So integration is important. Interoperability is also important. The investments we're making in technology, can those platforms actually speak to each other? And if they can't, what investments do we need to make to enable that? Data governance, big one. In fact, before you start your journey, think about data governance. So do we have the right policies? Do we have the right procedures? Do we have the right structures when it comes to data governance and compliance? Developing data talents, we need to invest in data talents. And I can tell you the rewards you would reap are actually worth the investment you're going to make when you invest in talents. Collaboration and partnerships. Are we collaborating? Do we share ideas? Are we looking at partners? So when other people come into our sector, do we look at them as potential partners or competitors? So you've got the fintechs, you've got every other person operating, you've got the telcos also trying to get into your industry and do what you're doing, but you look at them as competition. With collaboration, you can go fast, so think about how you can collaborate with them. Think about how you can collaborate with technology partners so that you can do more with them. Continuous monitoring and improvements, so you've made the investments. How do you keep monitoring it? How do you ensure that you keep improving on what you have within your environment? Change management, organization culture is big. So when you're moving to be a data-centric or towards data centricity, we need to have a data culture. So are we talking about the benefits of data within our environment, and are we actively driving it? And the last one is also around ethical concerns, which is a big one. So you also have to think about how do you establish ethical guidelines when it comes to data. So what I want to leave you with is the journey can look like it's a bit challenging, but the rewards are there. You need to get the buy-in at various levels to ensure that you're able to push this. It is not as easy as it sounds, but it is possible. We've seen a number of people do it with so many benefits. I have worked with a bank where, you know, there's things they do that are very subtle, and you can see how the bank is trying to keep you. So, for example, I log into my mobile banking app, pretty straightforward. Maybe they would ask for my thumbprints. So if I'm in Kenya or in the region, they are tracking my patterns and they know, okay, this is familiar. But when I move outside Africa to Europe, what I get for me to be able to log in is actually different, and it's very subtle, so you won't even notice. So normally I'll use my thumbprints. The next thing, when I'm out there, you actually get something that says, put in a code. They're trying to verify something before I can put in my thumbprint. So there's a lot of value you can derive from data, and I hope that you spend time engaging with us as well as with the panelists, but wish you success in your data journeys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akindele. This was extremely insightful. I don't know about you. I've been noting some things down that just struck me, which is more than 300 data points. I don't know how many financial institutions or us here are able to say we've gone and we've managed to galvanize and kind of deep dive to the point where we have up to 300 data points at any one time. I think that's very, very eye-opening. Opportunities for new partnerships and business model. I know sometimes when we talk about data, we're always thinking online retail, online business, but something as easy as understanding where people are gathering helps you to set up a new ATM. So there are real-life implications as well to this data gathering and analytics. And then the quality of the data. I think it's very key to have mentioned that as well. It's not just about gathering the data, but what kind of data do you want to gather, and understanding what you want to gather before you start gathering it, right? So thank you so much for that. It was very eye-opening. If I may invite our next speaker, our expert speaker, Mr. John Rugwirahira. I knew I was going to stumble there. I was doing 95% outside, but please welcome your Head of Research and Information at Access to Finance Rwanda. And Mr. Rugwirahira will discuss a bit more about the data analytics capacity of our financial sector here in Rwanda based on their assessment. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. I think this one is working. It's indeed a great pleasure to be here this afternoon and be given the opportunity to talk about data analytics in the context of Rwanda, in the Rwanda's financial ecosystem. It is one of the areas that we're giving very important priority for AFR, but also you can see across actors in the financial sector how they are taking this important area very seriously for their businesses. Before I continue the presentation, I would like you to take 5 seconds to look at that and try to think in the context of data that we are in now. What do we observe? What the first thing that comes in our mind? In the context of this lead series, data, what's in there? Few ideas, then we continue. Yes, yeah, true. If we could have a mic.
Design without information.
Design without information, that's very interesting. Yes. Any other idea?
I like the shoes.
Sorry?
I like the shoes.
You like the shoes? Very nice.
Offering a service without knowing the problem.
Offering the services that are not adapted to the context. So any, yes, brother.
Looks like one size fits all.
Thank you very much. I think we've already covered everything we can say about that.
Thinking about the future.
Yeah,
he may grow.
Sorry, we still have more ideas.
I said he's thinking about the future. The guy may grow.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's one of the. I think there is a lot of ideas that comes from that, looking at that picture itself. But more specifically, it can even portray the situation about the demand and the supply of information and how it circulates from one point to the other. It could, on one side, means that the tailor used wrong information, did not have enough information to the person who was going to put that outfit. It's also possible that in the context of financial sector, some of the services that are offered on the market might not necessarily meet the needs of the clients. It's also possible that the clients also offered wrong information. And in most cases, you see that financial services lack information, lack track record of our information. So, and that's one of the big issues that we observe. We don't have a record of information that would make ourselves trusted by the financial services, by FSPs, if they were to give us loan. The other thing is very important, I think Kevin highlighted it, it's one size fits all. Probably that was the only outfit on the market and they wanted to attend a wedding somewhere, so that's what they could get. And it also means that we're not saying that this is what is happening here, but it's also possible that there could be some of the financial services that we think or might think that they cover or they can fit all the clients across the sectors, be it in agriculture, tailoring, in trading, mining. There are no such products. There could be very, very specific issues around each segmentation, as the previous presenter said. So I'm just giving, I want to repeat the importance of data analytics in the financial sector as it was well portrayed. But I will just give some example of how the data is contributing to informing decisions, but also impacting the programming. I'm using two examples. One example is the FinScope 2020 that generated data with very exciting findings, with 93% of our Rwandans financially included. But also looking on the other side, we have 7% of our people who are completely excluded from the financial services. That's according to the data that we had then. And with that, we've seen a lot happening in terms of putting in place policies and strategies in order to fill the gap. We have NST1 that really reflects on that, but also more generally, the Vision 2050 is working towards ensuring that we have universal access to financial services, not only access, but also the use of financial services. And by the way, for your information, we in partnership with the NISR, the Central Bank, but also the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, we will be releasing in a few months the FinScope 2024. The second example of the use of data in informing decision, I don't know whether we're conversant, of course, with the FinScope, but maybe very few know the FinCap, the Financial Capabilities Survey that we also conducted in partnership with Minecofin, but also the Central Bank. It's a survey that portrays the capacities, the competences that people have in line to qualify as financial literate or financially educated. So these are the scores. There are a lot of calculations behind these scores, but it looks around 9 competencies, and we are doing bad in terms of investment and savings, but resilience. Overall, we have 45%, which is still very low. We'd expect to have more competencies in that. But in line with that, we've also seen the government developing the financial education strategy that is addressing some of these issues. So we have no doubt that the generation of adequate data is also feeding into the design of program and strategy that are very beneficial to the country. Talking about data analytics, of course, this is well known, and I can see even lecturers from the university, they use this very much. But looking at this, we would see the importance of data based on the complexity of the analysis, but also the value and contribution into the overall ecosystem. So there are most cases you would see that the analysis we have is more descriptive and describes what's happening, but without telling you what are the reasons behind all that. So another level, the second level of analysis that is required more specifically is the diagnostic analysis, which goes a bit beyond and looks into the assessment of the root causes of the situation as it is demonstrated in the descriptive. But more advanced again, if we push, would be to predictive. So we've seen the situation as it is, we know the reason, but we need to understand what might happen next. If we have the information and from experience, can we predict what will happen? But at more advanced level and outcome level would be, what do we do next? Is it just predicting, but also it's very important that we put in place measures in order to ensure that we have all that is required in case something happens, that we are ready and have information that is required. So for the policy, I don't know, we already have the, this is the framework for data maturity. In most cases, it looks at different aspects, and it looks at 8 dimensions and 5 levels of maturity. Whenever we talk about maturity, this is towards transforming the organization as into data-driven organizations. So these are the key components that have to be put in place, and to ensure that, of course, ideally would have everything put at that very high level. So we move from low to high, but also across the 8 dimensions of data that we have. So in the assessment that we did, and I'll come back to that, different financial organizations are at different levels. Some would be at the beginning, while on another component be at the middle. So, but again, I think I will have a consolidated aspect, slide on that. So this is things that have to happen in order to be called and to qualify as a data-driven organization. We have policy and conducive environment for data analytics here in Rwanda. And the government, of course, highlight the fact that data should be used as one of the key resources for development, but also not only looking at the data that is available, but also keeping an eye of what is happening across the market. But also, it is one of the ingredients towards the development, but also use the data in order to stimulate innovations so that the efficiency in the implementation of the program is also effective. We have data protection law, we also know about it, which gives some boundaries on how personal data should be used, but also on the other hand, we have access to information law or act that also provide the circumstances where data should be made public and shared. These are the actors on the market, and I think I won't dwell much on this. So we did the scoping study looking at the data analytics capacity that is there on the financial market, and we covered financial institutions, be it commercial banks, microfinancial institutions, but also some insurers, and overall, the journey for transforming into a data-driven organization, of course, should come, should go, it's a step, it's a process, as the previous presenter said. So there are initial levels, and that initial, it's when you see that the data management is just managed in an informal way, no processes, nothing is standardized. So the second level is the level when we say that it is managed. In that case, there is management, basic management processes are in place, but again, I think they're still inconsistent and not standardized at all. The third level is when we would say that data is defined. So we have all the processes in place, and the organization, the flow of information from one point to the other of the organization is well reflected. The third level is when the data is optimized. And optimized, we see, of course, there is review and but also efficient use of the data itself. And the last level, which is the highest level, is the continuous improvement. So reflecting and adapting to the changing environment using data as well. Sorry. The scoping study highlighted 3 stages where the surveyed financial institutions are at. There are those that have not yet started the process itself. So they are focusing on basic operational challenges. They still employ non-digital, and you still have them. We know they rely on direct interaction with their clients. There are others that just started. I'm not naming any organization here. I think reading it, I think one would see where they belong. So understanding that one, they do understand the importance of data. They have not invested much into the strategy and skills. They recognize the needs for their customer-centric products. But again, I think we don't see the role of the senior managers in driving the whole process. And this is very, very key. So whenever the top leaders are putting much effort in driving the process of data transformation, this is really happening, and we've seen that. And there are those that are on a journey, and this is a process. Of course, they've invested into strategies, infrastructure, but also developed policies, of course, that have not yet been refined properly, but still need to be refined well. But again, I think there's still lack of some of the skills that are required for them to perform the analysis that is required for their functions. Looking at the maturity, we applied all the dimension, and looking at globally, would say that on governance, data governance, most of them are still using very basic and informal governance mechanisms that are not well streamlined. The quality, of course, there are some level of awareness about the data quality and issues, but again, little is being done in line with addressing those. Third dimension, which is data system and integration. There has been some integration in some way as required by the regulator itself. So some level of integration is being applied. Data security and compliance. So basic level of security and compliance, again, are there. And data analytics and insight, mostly descriptive analysis are the ones that are used. We don't see that level, a complex level, but also very much contributing into decision making. On external valorization, we have data sharing and collaboration between different departments, but also different institutions. Documentation and metadata, very limited. Indicators not well defined. No indicator book that you would find in a particular organization, very few. And data culture, of course, transforming and institutionalizing the culture of data, knowing that data is something that is very much needed. So overall, there are lack of strategies, limited quality control mechanism, limited analytics capacity, of course, the skills that are required, but also the limited use, again, of the data because of poor analysis into the overall decision-making process. So he actually took my quote, the second quote here, but I'll use the two because the second one is already covered by Yacho. So I'll end my presentation by these quotes. Data analytics is the future, and the future is now. This is very important. So every mouse click and every keyboard button press is used to shape the business decision. Everything is about data these days. Data is information, and information is power. This is by Radi. And the last one, which is, I think, more translating data into decision making. It says that we are surrounded by data. There is data all over, but we starve for insight. Surrounded by data, but starve for insight. So thank you very much for the kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rigari. I'm going to take some classes with you afterwards, some Kinyarwanda classes. Huh? But this has been really interesting as well to understand where we are as a nation. And if I may ask you, I saw the scores, Mr. John. They were out of how much? One out of what was the scale used for the assessment of where we're like when we're like the last slide. Well, if I may take you back a bit. Where we had the assessments of one slide, this slide, yes.
This one here?
Yes, the level scale, it's out of how?
It's 5.
Out of 5.
5 levels, 8 dimensions.
8 dimensions.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much for that. So we can see that we're still at the beginning. I don't even know if we've really started the journey, but we're really at the beginning. And what it does is it provides a lot of opportunity for impact, quick impact and transformation. But it also means that we have a long way to go. So this is something that is quite important to do right now and to invest in right now. Most businesses wish they had a crystal ball to know where to go, how to do business and everything, and that's what we have. So without further ado, I would like to call in our panelists so that we can hear real-world cases of institutions, organizations here in Rwanda who have taken the journey, who have started the journey, and kind of pick their minds and see what has the experience been for them. So without further ado, allow me to introduce and to call up one by one. First of all, Ms. Rose Ngabire. Please give our panelists a round of applause as they come up. Give them imbaraga, as they say. Give them some love, some force. Ms. Rose is the Chief Operating Officer at Bank of Kigali and has over 10 years experience in the banking sector, is deeply committed to customer-centric strategies, and is generating long-term shareholder value. So, Ms. Rose, thank you so much for being here with us. We are pleased to have you. Next up, we'd like to call Ms. Lillian Onyango, the Senior Manager at KPMG Advisory Services. Big round of applause, please. Lillian is a data specialist with extensive experience in supporting clients to transform their data into insights into business, as Mr. Yachu said. As a senior manager, she leads a team of data experts delivering solutions in the financial services sector, manufacturing sector, and government, amongst others. Most welcome. Next up, we'd like to call on Mr. Ivan Murenzi. Mr. Ivan Murenzi is the Deputy Director General at the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, and he is a statistician and an economist with expertise in research, data collection, and analysis. Welcome, sir. I'd like to hear a bit more of a round of applause here, please, for the gentleman. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mr. Wilson Kamali, who has experience in statistics and economics and has gained over 15 years of working at the National Bank of Rwanda, where he currently holds the position of Director of Statistics at NBR, our central bank and regulator. And he oversees the production, thank you, and analysis of various types of data responsible for bank-wide data management. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Another round of applause for all of our panelists, please. Thank you. I'd like to kick off actually with you, Mr. Ivan. If we can start off really as Deputy Director of the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda, an institution that is leading the charge in data transformation in Rwanda. Could you perhaps give us some more insight as to how is data informing and guiding Rwanda's development agenda, whether it's the National Strategy for Transformation, Vision 2050, or the SDG goals?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to first start by appreciating AFR for convening us together. This is definitely a topic that's so dear to us at the National Institute of Statistics. It's exciting to see stakeholders in the financial sector engage on this relevant topic. I would say data guiding the journey of development in Rwanda has been progressive, like any other institution. So I'll tell you, in 2004, I was at the statistics department. Then, it wasn't the Institute of Statistics. And actually, I was there with Kamali, who is on my right here. At that time, it was a very small unit of government in the Ministry of Finance, just producing basic statistics, like GDP, inflation. We could barely say 4 key activities that we were doing at the time. And at the time, that was the level of appreciation of what was needed, or the key, what was considered as key statistics, to inform the challenges at the time. Right now, as we speak, we are a fully fledged institution with a huge budget that has been empowered to produce statistics across all sectors. Literally, we cover all sectors, from health, education. Now, recently, we were given the capacity to set up a data science team. You can see the level of value government has given to statistics over the years. And what does that say? That says that, in my view, government realizes that given the level of development that we are in, we need to prioritize. So first, that has been key in setting priorities. There are many development challenges. You need data to say, where do you start? What do you focus on? Because the resources are so limited at national level. So, for example, if you have followed, you could tell that there are some priority sectors that the government has focused on. Education is one of them. Investment, real investment in classrooms. Because the fact is, there are many people, statistics show that, who have no level of education. At the worst, very few who have finished university, very few have finished tertiary. So it's very clear, we need to invest in education. So a huge portion of the budget has been going to that. Agriculture, plus other sectors. So prioritization, in my view, is what that has done for government among its competing priorities. But when you do prioritization, you need to evaluate. You need to evaluate targets. So from all national strategies, from the Vision 2020, the NST, going to the sector strategies, all strategies are measurable. For those of you who have engaged those strategies, you see indicators, well-defined indicators. What we do has to align to inform those indicators. That is our performance target as well. So we don't do any activity that does not respond to those targets that government has, plus the other global targets like SDGs. So our work is clearly matched to those. So the issue of measuring progress is very key to government. So for example, you've noticed that over time, poverty has not improved. That's a key issue. If you look at the last 3 years, when we last measured poverty, poverty had not improved. That's a fundamental issue. So once you measure the progress and some things are not happening, then the appropriate interventions is the other thing that data has helped. There are very many interventions that have come as a result of looking at issues that are stalling. Specific interventions. You've heard of VUP in case of supporting the very poor. So I could say that's the third thing. Specific interventions to address specific issues. Just of recent, for those who might recall with the COVID situation, that was very interesting targeting, you would say, experience we had in Rwanda, where specific changes were continuously happening as data was coming in. Maybe we free up movement of people, maybe we free up some economic sectors. Agriculture was the first one, targeting cash and informing people to use cashless and engaging the relevant stakeholders to facilitate that so that businesses can be going on. So I think Rwanda, fairly speaking, as a government, has set the bar, or has at least tried to exemplify this whole thing we are talking about, the use of data. I've had a chance to visit several other countries in Africa, but also beyond. And I was asking myself, but surely, me working in the statistics, how do I compare myself to other places? And I would say two things. It's very unfortunate that in several of the countries you realize that the value of data is so low. And that manifests in so many developing challenges, issues that prevail in those countries. This is really the fundamental issue here. And I can only appreciate how, from the top level, this has been given attention. For a few who go into those high-level meetings, you can see how the top leadership really asks facts. And so the ministers go back and have to send us texts, call us midnight, give me these facts. That for me is powerful. I enjoy that. I enjoy those moments. But there's also really a sustained level of coordination and engagement across government. So I sit on the board of the central bank, and that's intentional. That's to see how we work together. That's to see how we don't duplicate things. That's to see how we reinforce things. So I think my message is that the government has set the bar. It's been progressive. And I think the financial sector can emulate that.
Thank you very much. If I may turn to you, Rose, representing Bank of Kigali, speaking on, we're talking about what the nation, what the national agenda has been, the willingness of the country's leadership to embrace and implement data in its policies and strategies for national development. Maybe you could speak more on, as an entity, as a financial entity within the country, what has Bank of Kigali done within your processes, within your operations, to embrace and to champion data for decision making, and what challenges have you faced as well?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for the statistics. I think the government indeed has made strides, and as private sector, I think we really have made some strides as well in terms of data and understanding what data is for us. And I think for Bank of Kigali, it's really important for us to look at it, and I think we've defined that as an asset. So it's a corporate asset, a valuable one at that. So once you define that, then you're like, how are we supposed to move forward to be able to use data and the insights that we get from that as very many use cases that we have in the bank. So what we've managed to do is to make sure that we have a strategy, and I think the strategy around how do we collect this data, how do we use this data, and I think it's not just to collect and store, but also the insights that come from it. How do we use it? So at Bank of Kigali, in terms of us developing new products, enhancing the current products, and I think you've all probably, our customers here can attest to the enhancements of mobile banking, and also looking at our USSD and our internet banking, the web-based. We've done a lot there in terms of making sure that data is used to improve and to also bring in new features that our customers are enjoying today. So also, as I sit with the regulator, we are now partners. We also have to report, and it's very important to report to ensure that we have quality data. So all that is really in terms of us, the bank, looking inward and say, how can we get this data? How can we use it properly? So as a bank, in terms of us trying to position ourselves as a customer-centric organization, we have to make sure that we have quality data, but also use the reports that have been generated, and then be able to use it to really personalize some services for our customers. And I think that's the maturity level that we want to get at. So as a bank, we've been assessed that we have moved, and we are at probably almost the third or the fourth level of maturity of data. So we really, really continue to work towards that as part of our strategy, and indeed driving the use of data for our customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I may go back to a point that was raised bringing data to the leadership level. And I know that Bank of Kigali has been, from a leadership level, really championing data, both from the group level, CEO, all the way down. So thank you very much for that insight. And I'll come back to you with more specific questions. Turning to our regulator, Mr. Kamali, as a regulator, as National Bank of Rwanda, what initiatives or what systems have you put in place to support an enabling environment for the likes of the Bank of Kigali, but all the other also financial sector actors and players in Rwanda? Could you speak to some of that?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here, and pleasure to be here on the panel to share experience and talk about the data. So maybe before I dive into really what as the central bank we're trying to do, just by the mandate of the central bank, you know, entitled to do macroeconomic analysis, at the same time ensure the financial stability, strength, soundness, and stability. That alone gives, you know, tells that our day-to-day business is based on data. So I think Ivan gave a bit of experience of the COVID. I think it was also a bit of eye-awakening way in the way we do things. I remember at that time on a weekly basis we had to provide insights how the economy is doing on a weekly basis to the high offices, and realized, you know, just at that time we were more using customs data to see how transactions are happening, and here we're more dealing with really micro information to come up with. So really data is very important, and I want to appreciate his presentation. Was really nice and very insightful, and more, I think, to the business perspective, but also to the regulator perspective. So over the last 4 years, I think the bank intentionally decided to, you know, to modernize, especially on the IT infrastructure. First of all, how do we get information close to real time to be able, you know, to be able to make predictive and diagnostic analysis? You have to have real-time information to be able to do that, and timely for your forecasting to be relevant. So, so the investment was more aligned to that. What infrastructure do we have, should we have in place to make sure that information data is centralized? Improved reporting, information sharing mechanism, mainly with the regulator and other public entities like Revenue Authority, where we try to get a lot of information. And that is more on administrative data, but as you know, we also do quite numerous surveys jointly with other government entities like the Institute of Statistics. So to come to the level of analytics, there are certain phases, you know, that have to be in proper. One is on the collection point of view. How are you doing that? Then based on that, how do you build indicators to have, you know, descriptive assessment? And to reach to that level, you have to build the trust in the data you have, and that is the quality issues. It's been a challenge, and of course, it's always a process. You know, you can never say that you have 100% of the quality information, so depending on things. So building the trust, of course, different things we're doing, you know, to make sure that, you know, this information becomes reliable, and then start developing different indicators, and, you know, up to the point where we become a more data-driven policy-making institution. So that has been sort of a chart we're trying to follow, and we are getting there. And this to happen, definitely, of course, with stakeholders, mainly the financial sector, because we can say maybe 70% of the data we use on a more regular basis is from financial sector. So in the process, definitely, we have been learning from each other. And I'm sure also the regulated institutions have been also trying to learn. And, you know, this information is not necessary for the regulator, but I think from his presentation, it's more the business entity, you know, this information is important for us to have. So we have been going through together through that journey. So after that, definitely to make meaningful out of the information, we realized that we need also other skills. I think you also mentioned something, you know, some of the barriers is the skills, you know, data talent. So for the last 2 years, we introduced a new division, which is the data science, you know, coming in to complement, you know, other techniques we do, but to what value should we make out of this data? So at the moment, there are quite a number of, you know, different projects that we are doing, using data, using unstructured data. For example, you know, trying to predict agriculture using satellite images, for instance. How do you do web scraping to see what are the Rwandans, you know, what are their sentiments? So we are moving to that level of doing sentiment analysis, you know, a combination of different data sources. So I could say that's where we are, and definitely we are aiming to see what value also should we make to the industry, especially the regulated industry. You know, you have so much, but what should we give out that we think is relevant for them, you know, for their business strategies, formulation. So that's the level where we are heading to make sure that we don't only sit on this as the regulator, but also we have to share, or we have to inform the connected stakeholders, mainly the regulators and other public institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I may just, hopefully not putting you on the spot, but just to ask, in the level of maturity, the 5 levels of maturity, where would you assess the central bank to be? In the realistic, but we're not expecting 5. You can also plead the 5th, as they say in the court.
So under the 5 levels maturity, maybe we are halfway the journey.
That's excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. Excellent. So you are pioneering, actually, and you're at the forefront of it, and it's excellent to hear that you are actively also understanding the importance of this, which brings me now to you, Lillian. As a senior manager of KPMG East Africa, you have a big contextual overview of the region, different markets, different levels of maturity. Seeing what you have seen, and really especially for our audiences here, and those online as well, by the way, we have many people joining us online. Thank you very much. What practical steps could financial institutions follow as they start this journey? Right? We've heard of investment into infrastructure and IT, investment into skill development. Could you highlight a bit more? Yeah, if someone said, you know, today's the day we start our journey, what are the practical steps to start?
Right. Thank you very much for that question. So I like all the presentations that have been done today. Something that's coming out very clear is that data is an asset. Data is the new oil. This is a journey. There are opportunities that you can get out of your data. There are challenges that are there in terms of getting started into this journey and really getting value out of your data. So where do you start? Organizations are at different levels of maturity. How many years have you been in operation? The challenges of a business starting today are very different from the challenges of an organization that has been around for 10, 40, 50 years plus. So where you really need to start is to evaluate yourself, similar to the presentation we've had today. Where am I? What do I really want to do with data? What a bank can do with data is very different from what an insurance company wants to do with its data. So you have to pause and ask yourself, where am I today? I need to do a health check. We all acknowledge that there is beauty in working with data. There is power in working with data. There is growth you can get out of your data. But where are you? What do I want to do with this data? Can I identify what are my use cases when it comes to working with data? You know, we were told today there are more than 300 data points that you can work with. But do you really need to go and get all those 300? You have to sit back and ask yourself, what do I want to do with my data? And where am I? I've been in operations for quite a while. Where am I struggling? You might find there are areas you're actually doing quite okay. You just need to tap onto, you know, the 8 different areas you were shown today. You might find that there are only specific areas you need to unlock to really make data work for you even better. So for me, I would say, where do you start? Assess where you are today. What are your unique challenges? And what do you really want to get out of your data? This will then help you have a clear path. What do I fix? Is it my data sourcing that I'm getting wrong? I'm not taking care of my data quality? Is it the technology that I have that is not working well enough and I need to think of a different way to bring my data together? Or is it a people conversation? You know, you may have gone all the way to bring all the technology, but you need to upskill your team, you need to work with your people to make them understand on why is it we want to work with data. Let's walk this journey and really get the value out of the data that we are collecting. So really, a starting point is to assess, where am I today? What do I want to achieve? What are the roadblocks that I need to unlock? And you really stretch that over time and bring that value. One thing I can add on to this conversation of where I want to start. We are all in a very fast-paced environment. The sector you are in is very competitive. Even as we know that this is a journey, when you're talking about data governance, when you're talking about data management, it is quite a journey. And I know my clients have challenged me, Lillian, how do I show return now? No, you can't keep on saying, I'm just dealing with data quality, I'm just dealing with, you know, bringing in a data warehouse, I'm fixing all these IT issues, but I'm not showing any kind of return. So as you acknowledge that this is a journey, I need to fix this, I need to fix that, I need to make sure my data is well integrated, you need to remember that it is data is a very people conversation. You want to make sure that your stakeholders, your audience are actually buying into this idea of working with data. So as you work through your long-term goals, what are some of the wins? I need to keep engaging my stakeholders. What are some of the quick wins that I can demonstrate to them and show to them this is what data can do for us? So to just bring it all together, take a pause, reflect on your grand, data initiatives, your data use cases, but have some wins that you can demonstrate and work with the people all through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lillian. Thank you very much. I think also what I hear coming out of this too is, like we saw with the image, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? We have to know it has to be specific to your goals, your initiatives, what you're doing. And I guess that's where being able to work with experts and policies and partners really, really help. So coming back really briefly and just to round up some of this conversation, coming back to you, Mr. Murenzi, as the coordinator of the National Data Revolution Policy, I think that was gazetted in 2017, and then we have other laws such as the Data Protection and Privacy Law of 2021. Could you speak or share maybe one or two other initiatives that you may be working on to increase the uptake or encourage the uptake in the Rwanda, in Rwanda's financial markets?
Thank you. I think that's a key question, and one we have work to do as the National Institute of Statistics. One is awareness of all the meaningful data reports that we have. We do an annual user satisfaction survey, and it keeps coming repeatedly that there are very few people who are aware of our outputs and who can effectively use them. So some of our outputs are very technical, and not everyone is so. Probably I'll give a quiz right now, but which I'll check later. If you can just write on your notebooks and tell me the different statistical outputs you think we produce. I want to see as many as you can list and check on me at the table later. But I bet a few of you will even name a half of them. That speaks about the challenge of awareness that we have to address. So we are engaging with various partners to see how we continue to do various workshops. AFR, what you're doing right now is indeed part of what we would desire, like to see more awareness about data that exists. So awareness is one of them. And the other one is related to that, is simplify our work, our outputs. So that, if we talk of a labor force survey, you don't have to navigate a huge report that has so many things, but what are the key insights from that? Now, as statisticians, we are not good communicators, so we need to borrow your services, Olivia and the others, to help us distill these things. That's our limitation. AFR, we would need your support in that regard. How do we get good communicators, really, who can communicate? We have lots, but the packaging is what's missing. We acknowledge that, but we need to do something about that. Lastly is training. So some of the information, some of the data, you need some capabilities to be able to use it. And I'm happy to, over the last 4 or 5 years, to see some institutions who have hired statisticians, experts. I see a number of them here. Some have been poached from our institution, like good analysts, statisticians. On one hand, I want to release them, but on the other hand, I want to hold on. But I'm tending now to feel okay to release them, because if they can go and serve you and you do better, I think that you need that. Invest in people, please. To my colleague Rose, I don't know if you have a unit for statistics, but if not, please, you need to set up a fully fledged unit, very good experts. But I know you have some data scientists, I think, which is very good. But every other institution needs that. The basic to start with is a few people. They may not have all the skills, but they will get somewhere over time. So training, awareness, packaging is what we'll do, but we need partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Rose, it's coming to you. Yeah.
So to answer to Ivan, I think we have, and I'm happy to say that we have a full-fledged department, really not just a few, but a full-fledged department that is really looking at how data governance, the strategy, but all those challenges that we mentioned, for sure we share them in terms of having the right skills and data analysts in place. So we have the same markets. All of us have to really look for them wherever they are. I'm sure we've probably poached from you. So that really what they do is to help us understand and get the buy-in of everyone. So we would like to change and to ensure that the network, the entire network, has that culture, the data culture. And I think we've started off by having data stewardess and going to them wherever they are in our branches and training them and make them understand what does this mean? What is data? How do you collect it? How do you store? How do you use it? So it's that basic that we want really the entire organization to buy into this. Because for sure we know the senior management, the executive, the CEO, they understand the value very well, and they're pushing the organization to be able to look at this data as an asset, as I mentioned. But obviously we still have challenges, so I just wanted to answer to Ivan that we have a department that is dedicated and reporting on it more regularly and trying to create these dashboards that we can use and ensure that every decision we make in a bank is really based on the real data that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Rose, that's really, that's lovely to hear, because it's coming from top down, but you're actually implementing it as well across the board. You're creating ambassadors, you're training internally as well. A whole department. How many banks, not again to put out our colleagues, but how many, would you happen to know if other banks have such departments already in place?
So I don't know if you know, but I don't have that information, but I'm sure they have obviously, the decisions they make or the product they put out there, I'm sure they have some sort of, maybe not a full department, but some sort of data scientist, or maybe a business intelligence department or unit that will do that for them. I would like to think all banks do. And I think we have also many regional banks that probably have that at their head office.
Sure,
Yeah.
but a full-fledged department is what I think is really unique there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, before I leave you, if you're able to maybe share, or if it has already happened, if you've had maybe one or two products or initiatives that have come out of this investment, you know, one or two maybe wins that have come out of this investment. Yeah.
So yeah, they are given, when I look at the initiatives that we have at the bank, so of course there are products that have come out, and this, I put it, the difference is not much between having the data and also having the digital products come out, and I think all the products that have come out, really we started by gathering data and understanding the customer's needs, and then look at how we can digitize and give customers this enhanced product, like our new app that is out there, and we had very good reviews and feedback from our customers, really improved from what we've had before. So I think that's commendable. But also beyond that, I think is to look at operational efficiency, right? So when we look at the transactional data that we have, the customer data, but what we've managed to do is now automate as many journeys as possible and the back end. And when you have your back end really working efficiently, then it makes things a lot easier at the front. So what we call straight-through processing, transaction, bank to bank, but also maybe partnering with RSwitch to be able to make payments, real-time payments. So all these are done because we have this data that we can analyze and be able to automate. And I think most recently is international transfers. So international transfers, we used to have it done manually through very many validations. But now a customer can initiate from a banking app, and it goes straight through without anyone looking at this transaction. So I think we have a long way to go, but we've made some strides in the right direction. As a bank, we've also done some assessment. We worked with KPMG to really do our assessment and tell us where we are and where we need to move, which is very, very good to help us in the right direction to be able to do that. So maybe on the challenges, we share most of the challenges in terms of skills gap, training, but also a big one for us is change management in the organization and the network for people to really adapt and understand what this is. And the other last one for me would be the legacy systems. We are a bank that is 50 years old. So what that means is we've moved very many systems, and also developing other systems that probably we need to make sure that we can extract data from that system and be able to move it to the new system. So we're still going through some of those challenges, but I think in a positive way that we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Lastly, coming back to you, Wilson, as a representative of the central bank, you've seen, the central bank is witnessing this transition. One of the challenges mentioned is legacy systems. What perhaps are other challenges that you're seeing that you're maybe working on actively already as a central bank?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so through this journey, definitely that has been observed. Some of the quality issues we are talking about is about also the legal system. So here now the central bank comes, they say, at least this information is very key. Then, because of the legal system, definitely it has been a challenge for financial institutions to be able to adopt to that. But then at the end, they've been able to adjust accordingly. Let me just give you an example, just a very specific example, and I want to relate this to, let's say, on remittance data. I see Dr. Edward here is one of the enthusiasts on remittances and been doing a PhD research on that. So we know this is very key for us to track that, the impact of remittances in terms of FX generation, on financing, the trade capital account deficit, sorry for those terminologies. But again, like he said, how do you segment this to the customer-wise level? If we want to understand who are the beneficiaries of these remittances, where do they stay? What economic activities do they do? You see, that kind of detail. So here we come and say, at least we want this minimum information. Then the institutions go back to try to adjust. So, there are these terminologies nowadays, SupTech, RegTech, what comes first, last. So it depends anyway. So I think in our case in Rwanda, we started from the regulator point of view to try to define and say information is key. Information on your customer is key. Information on the product you're providing is key, So if you don't have that, then it will be very difficult to be able to do those analytics, from diagnostic to predictive up to whatever. So you have to have micro information to be able to understand. It's very costly, and it's very costly even to ask the regulator. Managing micro information, it's very costly in terms of skills set you want, but also in terms of technology that you have to use. Compared to the usual, macro analysis, you get GDP numbers and you put in a model, it predicts and it's able to tell. But dealing with micro information is very costly. At the same time, definitely, it's costly to the provider because they have to go and change their systems to make sure that they're enhanced, they're scalable to be able to, to serve the regulator and other, data users. So definitely those have been challenges, but I think collectively we are beginning to realize this is very key, not only for the regulator, but also for the business people, at least from the feedback and the comment we are getting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, coming back to you, Lillian. We have the regulator that is providing guidance, that's helping to provide guidance on certain data points that are important for us to have. We have financial institutions who are taking their own initiatives, who have understood, who are trying things out. We have government entities that are trying to create enabling environments, who are trying to research, develop further our data analytics. How would you say these, how can we all work together, right? We heard a lot about collaboration, partnerships, but for a very long time, it's always been competition, right? Competition or, fear of the regulators. But how can this new field of data analytics, or how can an entity use partnerships, and which partnerships are valuable, could be valuable to look into? Yeah.
Thank you very much. So one thing we acknowledge is that data is only valuable if you're doing something with it, yeah? If you're either analyzing it, you're using it to track some of the indicators that you want to track, you want to value how effective some of the policies are, and really to create that connectedness in the data, we have to really work together. So we started off by saying, as you're collecting your data, as an institution, you want to ensure that you can relate the different data sets that you have. There's only value if you can tell, your customer X has traveled somewhere by connecting data from the different touch points that you have. So that is connecting data within an organization. But when you think about the whole financial sector, you want also to be able to draw some insights. When I look at how well the different financial institutions are serving Rwanda, how well can we bring all that together and do some analysis, get some insights at a national level. So how do we all work together to make sure that the data that's coming from Bank A and Bank B can actually be brought together and drive some meaningful policies, drive some meaningful product, and we're even talking about customer experience earlier on. How can we bring all this data together in a way that enables us to be innovative, use that data to be innovative. A simple example, there are standards that have been built just to make sure that organizations can communicate to each other. A simple one, if you're thinking about payments, what has been achieved using the switch way of working, all this at the base of it is being able to push data from one point to another in a manner that is connected and consistent. So how I really see all the different players coming together, if you start from the policymaker is keeping us in check. It's helping us to have that grand vision of building this connected data asset. What are some of the policies we can put out? And to just share a few examples from a policy point of view, I've mentioned about switch. When you look at another policy, we talked about data also is a risk. You've seen a number of policies coming out from a data privacy point of view. You want to ensure that, yes, we are collecting data, we are trying to be innovative with this data, but are we also thinking about some of the rights of our consumers? Can we do this kind of data analysis, this kind of innovation in an ethical manner? Can we monitor, we are not infringing on some of our customers' rights? Can we make sure that we are innovative in an ethical manner, in a manner that keeps our consumers happy with what we are doing with their data? Another example still around the policy point of view, we do know that a lot is growing. I saw the kind of levels of analytics that are being shared. Are you still in the descriptive, or are you going all the way to the predictive and prescriptive kind of analysis? As we're walking through this space, a lot of new technologies are coming up. AI is a very, it's a space we thought was in the future, but the future is now. AI is here with us. So from a policy point of view, we know there's opportunity in that space, but what policies are we putting in place to also ensure that this is being done in an ethical manner? This is being done in a manner that does not exclude a certain set of people, but remains to be inclusive and being done in a more productive way to bring in more innovations, open up financial services to even some of the unbanked population. So from a policy point of view, there is need to make sure that there are clear policies to safeguard what's being done. There are, clear policies that also guide that approach to building that connected data set. When you think about then what else can the different players do in this space, how do you walk the journey in terms of using your data? We really have to think of how do we make sure that the data set we are collecting is actually of quality. There are many efforts to build national level databases, and from a consulting point of view, I'm getting to see a lot of initiatives from a national point of view. Governments want to create a central source of data that can drive policy making. I've seen a couple of initiatives from the different government entities. How can we create a central database for cross-border financial flows? There are a number of indicators we want to track at a national level, but this can only be achieved if in the grassroots levels we are connected in how we are collecting our data, we're making sure we are applying similar standards as much as possible in our data, so that central data asset can be of value to us all across, from creating innovative products. We've seen organizations trying to establish partnerships, and I'll just pick an example. We are seeing a lot of collaboration between telcos and banks. How is this being achieved? It's because there is some level of data flow to facilitate that kind of business. We are seeing a lot of collaboration being achieved from different angles. And we can only build this connected data if we are intentional about applying some common standards in our data, making sure that this can be integrated in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Love to open up the floor to our guests, to our audience, with any questions. So we have some microphones going around. And if you haven't already, there are registration forms on each table. If you would just fill in your names. But we are open to questions, comments, observations. What challenges have you seen in the market? You have the regulators, the National Institute of Statistics here. You have, yeah, likewise. So we really would love to hear from you as well. Some of the data scientists, Ivan, that you were talking about, who are here, we'd love to hear their experience and their observations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So if you would give your name, perhaps, and who you represent, yes.
I'm Dr. Edward Kadoz. I wear many hats. I'm a researcher, I'm a lecturer, and here in this capacity I'm representing Center for Development Policy, which leads me to the comment. I don't have a question, it's just a comment I'm going to say. Let me start with this brief experience. Some years ago, I was working on this project related to finance sector as well. I get this recommendation or letter from the regulator, the central bank, to be given data from banks. I get to the first bank, of course I will not mention the bank, talking to person X, person Y, can I get this data? And they are not refusing to give me data, but accessing the data that disorganized within the institution. I go to the another one, which were really good, and they say, okay, we are giving you this Excel sheet of how many years building up the data. I take the data, the Excel sheet, work on it for 3 months, not getting sense of what was there. Very disorganized, nothing. So, and then I think about this. I say, these people are so kind. First of all, as the panelists were saying, there is no policy that we are refusing to give you data. That is a very starting good thing. Data is, the access is there. But the capability to collect, document, manage the data becomes an issue. So I talk to my colleagues, say, but this is a challenge. I know you are also facing the same thing. Then we start working out to set up a policy think tank that will address one of these issues the panelists have mentioned and present us. The issue relates to capacity to generate and use data. And that's one of the questions we are addressing. But before that, I think we needed to appreciate a lot of things the government and other stakeholders are doing. So one of them, they have mentioned them, but I wanted to mention two things. The aspect of coordination in data generation. It's very, very important. When you want data from the central bank, the same data communicates with the data from the National Institute of Statistics. That shows the same data again communicates with the data from Access to Finance. That is a very important thing, and you don't get it elsewhere in other places we look to. And I think that's very important. We need to appreciate and make use of it. The second one is benchmarking the methodology in the generation of data. This is very, very important because our data is not used locally here. It is used, has to be used internationally by different players. So, and this one is very important in internationalizing the methodology or benchmarking the methodology that are used. So for the interest of time, I will not mention examples. But there is this important thing I think we needed to work on. How, I think Johnny mentioned about it, how do we raise this awareness at the leadership level to value the importance of using data, generating data, credible data, and make it accessible to the users. That's one. A second one is to build the capacity of people to use the data. This is very important because I could imagine the data central bank has, the data National Institute has. It's a lot, as Deputy Deji was saying. It's a lot of data, but people are not using it. Some of us, we are into research, into policy. Few people use this data. So I think this is a very important thing, which leads also not to capacitate the technicians, but other people who need to promote this data. For example, I was talking to my sister, the media people. They communicate better than we do, but they need to make use of this data. And we need, it is, I think, our responsibility to make data generated and in a simple language format which they can use to communicate this data. I think, thank you.
Thank you very much. From your comment, it sounds that both the communication of the data, but also the understanding of the data you're collecting, correct? Because you were given Excel sheets for 3 months, but clearly there was not an understanding of what that data meant in a way that will help you organize and help you then make sense of it. So there's a capacity building aspect to it. I hear that is very deep into it. And actually, it's a question I wanted to ask is, and I don't know if anyone has an answer here, but in our schools, in our institutions, in universities, is there an uptake of data science? Or is it decreasing, right? Are we aware, are Rwandans aware that there is this field that is highly important and that is the future and that can be entered? Do the universities understand? I know there are lecturers here who may answer, but perhaps, I don't know if you have any insights as a panelist.
I'm here with Emzi.
It's happening. I just want to start by saying it's happening, gradually happening, and Ames, you can go on.
Thank you very much. I also have my friend, Dr. Inyas from the University of Rwanda. I don't know if he's here. I saw some. He's not? He left. Okay. So I'm going to speak on behalf of the academic and research institution. Yes, the simple answer to your question is yes. But I think there's another question to say how. Because student as student, they come to the university, we present them with the skills or the curriculum, and data science is very sexy. Everyone like, I want to know AI. What does it mean, really? Data science is not only those kind of statistical technique, which we know that is a very good foundation to have. If students are struggling with statistics, don't talk about data science because they need actually to validate it. So it is true that there's an appetite of students embracing data science. What we are doing is how to make it more accessible. How do you keep quality of those kind of training? And how relevant it is. So that when the National Bank of Rwanda is talking about the data science team, and I sent some EMS alumni there, they go there with those kind of very abstract knowledge, but they need to understand that there's some economic aspect that they need to learn, because they don't have that. If they go to the National Office of Statistics, they really need to just know, say, oh, I'm a data scientist. They need to see the relationship between how statistics can actually create that foundation. When they talk about data science, it makes sense. It's relevant to what the National Office of Statistics. That one, we need partnership, because sometimes some of us, when we develop this kind of curriculum, we look at it from very different perspectives. I think partnership is key for us. One, to understand the need. Two, is to develop those kind of training that respond to the need. Three is really to make the impact, because we will lose if we don't develop those kind of critical mass of data scientists. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I wonder, is there this conversation happening between the private sector and now academia? Because from what you're saying, it sounds like the students need to see the real life world implications. Perhaps this is an opportunity for private sector to go present at schools to show what what does it mean to be a data, how do we use it, what are the challenges? Hopefully that is going to be continuing to grow out of this. But the beautiful thing is, demand always brings supply, supply always brings demand, so we hope to see more of this. Do we have any more comments, please? Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very
good. So mine is more on a bit related to the last intervention, in a sense of how do we make sure, because I do believe that the moment we avail data, you'll always find people who are smart enough to mine that data and derive some products that are really useful. And we've seen this. When I look at how payment has evolved in Rwanda, you look at almost all the banks have digitized their payment systems. They have their mobile apps. They have USSDs. We have MTN, Airtel, mobile. Fintechs are coming in. A lot is happening. And all these are digitized systems which happening in this market, leveraging the rails, the infrastructure, the technology that is in place. What are we doing to have, like, I don't know, is it data lakes or gathering this data so that we make them available? And maybe we can agree between players in the market. If, let's say, there's one MNO which is providing data, they could charge for it, but they know that, because currently, most of these institutions are producing data, but they are not using it. And whoever is looking for information, the likes of Dr. Kadoz here, is not accessing, yet it's there. It brings back to the last slide of the data is there, but the insights are missing. But mostly you'll find that the issue is that it's not centralized. We should have like a market where the data are there. You know that by the time you go to that market, you have a bunch of information. Then it's up to you to pick whatever you want. I don't know if there's any at policy level, because the good thing, we have two institutions with the authority to make a decision. I don't know if there's any plan for that. It would be good to know. Thank you.
Maybe I will start on that. First, I acknowledge that's a challenge for some people who want to dive into like institutional data all aggregated. So what we said is out there is national surveys and other data that's collected by the Statistics Office, but when you begin to look at some institutional data, in this case the financial sector, yes, you can't say you will easily find it somewhere. Now, there are a number of things there around how it's, as of now, in a good position to be shareable. That's one. Two, the privacy issues. What we have done with the data protection law, which outlines about issues of confidentiality as the Statistics Office, we are working out a mechanism where people, first of all, we aggregate that data, and we have already an office or a space where people can come and work from central databases and mine the data, and we see the analytics, and then they can take out the outputs, but they don't take the data sets. So the issue is, with data privacy, there are limitations of how you just make data sets available there, because you don't know. There's what you can anonymize, but there's where you can't. For example, some people have come to us and said, give us business data. You know, we collect data on businesses. But for your information, in Rwanda, there are some sectors where you have like two main players. So you can't do anonymization enough to take care of confidentiality. So in such a case, we can't share that data set. However, we are working out an arrangement where we say, you come to our office, you run the analytics. What we think is okay, you take the tables, the graphs, but you don't take the data sets. So I think, for me, that's one solution to that issue. But maybe specifically the central bank may have something in plan as they've been consolidating data from financial institutions. But as the institution in charge collectively, that's so far what we are exploring. I hope that will be one way to solve this issue. Sure, that again goes to my acknowledgement of communication. That's our weakness. But we need indeed to make some of these things more clear and known for researchers, for people. Some who have approached us, they get to know of that, and then we work out some of those arrangements. But yes, I acknowledge we need to make it much clearer.
So from the central bank perspective view, so having the centralized data collection system, one objective was to minimize the challenge of the different data needed. Like Edward had to move from bank X to another one. So one was to say, what can we do so that we relieve this burden of people going to collect data from bank X and YZ? So that's how we came up with this concept of the electronic data warehouse, that we try to get micro granular information that we believe anyone who wants to do analysis, we can be able to serve. That was really the objective of having that system, and which we have. So we have some prototype analysis that we do, and we do it with different people, or not necessarily that now we do. So one way is that because in some researches, they may need, let's say, farm-level information, or even customer-level information. So in this case, we cannot just give people's, information from BK, from I&M, no. So normally what we do with the data scientists, normally we anonymize the data. We give you the data set that is anonymized, which you cannot be able to tell that this is so and so, or this data is coming from BK because of the data privacy level. So as we are saying, that is really, it's very important, and it's important that the information is centralized. We try to do so. I know there's quite a lot of research that World Bank does, like the previous one on saving presentation that was done yesterday. Sometimes they really need that lowest level information, but the way we do is through the anonymization. However, I have to acknowledge from the central bank point of view, something that we're trying to do is also to make sure that we are developing, a data governance framework. We have to make sure that that framework is in place that has to guide how do we share information, how do we share, individualized or personalized information, how do we make sure it is accessed, is even internally and externally, what platforms do you have to have in place? So I think this is something that we are working on, going forward to make sure that this is accessible. But I think, as Ivan said, maybe in the process we have to improve our communication to make sure that the public understands what do we have and what can we be able to support in terms of the private sector.
I think that really also speaks to one of the points that was raised by our presenter, which was lack of record. Right? A big lack of record being a huge constraint. And speaking again to also another point raised about international standardization, it can only help if an investor knows ahead of time what they're getting into in Rwanda, right? It makes it only more attractive if we have those things. So how do we communicate what we already have, continue to synthesize it? But it sounds like we are on the journey already, so it's fantastic that there are these databases, but how do we improve upon them, which is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for innovation and perhaps business. Maybe we'll take on one or two more observations, questions from the audience. Great, we have our two. Thank you. Maybe we can have our lady speaker to introduce. Yes, please, and then yourself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rahab Wangari, Head of Data and Analytics at Irembo. I think I just want to make a comment on what Issa said. There is a need to have, we need to bridge the gap between industry and academia. And I think it's today it's calling up each and every stakeholder. As training as a data scientist, when you're in school, we actually use a lot of data sets that are actually international. There's a site called Kaggle, but we have National Bank of Rwanda, we have Irembo, we have Access to Finance. We are collecting this data. How can we actually start from somewhere? I know it's very hard because we're dealing with personal identifiable information, but how can we start from somewhere and put this data out there such that Carnegie Mellon, Ames University, these students are actually working on real data sets, and it's happening in their country and it's happening in the region. With that, that means that we are creating a generation that it's not just going to solve international problems, but they are best placed to solve African problems. Yeah, so that's one thing. And I think the next question goes in between infrastructure and how we are going to scale. Akindele today highlighted that there is a need for us to move online for infrastructure. But I think a lot of stakeholders who are here, look at the banking sector, the telco, Irembo, we have to have our data in the country. But the rate at which this data is growing, the need for these services is quite massive. How do we balance having our regulator here, storing this data in the country, as well as leveraging the potential for AI as well as the cloud? Because we only have so much space. We can buy so many servers. MTN and AOS can only hold so much. But what does the future look like? Which policy are we probably trying to put in place for that? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent question, observation. Would like to take this on? Yes, please.
Yeah. Maybe I can just share a few thoughts in that space. Going cloud, what does that look like? In a country where we do have the Rwanda Data Privacy Act in place, the expectation is that PII data should sit, within the country. If you're taking it out of the country, you need to be very sure about the controls, the environment you're taking that data to. So I'll answer this by just sharing a few experiences from, some of the clients we've engaged with on a cloud conversation. So there are risks. There are risks when you're thinking about moving your data out there. And when you're working with that data, there are data sets that are less risky. It's a new technology, and I keep on saying, when you're facing a new decision in the tech space, how do you approach this? How can you face this out in a manner that you benefit, you get the wins from this technology as you manage the risks with working with that technology? So what I've seen is you find organizations get to classify their data. What data am I comfortable putting out there, out in the cloud? That is probably not PII data, that it does not relate to my core business. If I feel my core business is highly regulated, the regulator says, this has to sit internally. But there are those operations, there are those, functions within your organization that can comfortably sit in the cloud, that do not fall within the purview of the Data Privacy Act. As you start that journey, it gives you a chance to understand, how can I work with this technology? How can I scale as we get comfortable with the idea of putting our data out there in the cloud? So again, I would say going cloud is a journey, and I know we've worked with a couple of our clients to just help them plan out that journey. What can I put out there? What can I put internally? As I get comfortable and get to even understand better how cloud technology can work for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Has answered your question? Thank you. Yes, please.
Sorry, just also wanted to add to that. So there's an option of private in-house cloud. So I've got a telco, massive clients, they do a lot of transactions, but to be able to scale, what they decided to do was have a private in-house cloud. So it's an option you can consider instead of going to a public cloud.
It's very useful, sir.
Thank you. My name is Jean-Jacques. I work for RSwitch as the COO. So mine is to ask to the panelists, mostly Central Bank and the National Statistics. Taking into consideration the challenges that we have into the market, I think one of it Rose mentioned, where financial institutions are dealing with legacy systems. We also have data source from multiple platforms into one institutions. How do you, which insight do you have to really reach accurate data that will really meaningful be used? That's my first question. With today, like at Auschwitz, we are implementing the national interoperability, where we are bringing together financial institutions, MNOs. This is really sector interoperability, where data has to be shared. Need to define at which level this data has to be shared. So at some point, there will be some compromise around data. Not confidentiality or privacy, but I think national statistic or central bank will really need to guide, because at some point there are some synergy that will need to be done, like a partnership that BK and MTN had implemented on the Mache, where to achieve that, information has to be shared, and not necessarily anonymized data, but raw data. Which advice do you give so that we can have two financial institutions working together, exchanging data without fear of competitions, but you guide them on which level of data can be shared to really serve better customers and really reach a higher level of financial inclusion? Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So if I can try to comment, and feel free to interject if I didn't capture your question well to your expectation. So starting from that, where we can have one source of where information that can be accessed, you know, by different stakeholders. I know in our case in Rwanda, from the central bank, we have like the database to the national ID, because in my understanding is that of recent, if you are to open up an account, I think the bank has an access to get some personal level information for KYC. And I understand also the national ID, they're in the process of upgrading to make sure that they can onboard more information. And I think one of the challenge with that is that the frequency of their data updating maybe was not so much frequent, but there was also data arrangement that the central bank initiated through which financial institutions can be able to access. Let it be insurance companies for policy, they can be able to come and get the national ID and other related information. So I think also Ivan can talk about the vital statistics. I think nowadays, you know, birth and death information, there's a way it is captured and centralized. So maybe how can that be accessed by financial institutions if they want to update their customer level information? Because, you know, also customers' information keep changing oftenly. So I don't know, I'm not from the supervision department, but I understand those are kind of policies that need to happen in place. You know, is it on quarterly basis, customer level information should be updated? Because we keep on changing. Today I'm staying in Kigali, tomorrow I will shift, I'm in Musanze. So if I apply for a loan, BK will understand that I'm still in Kigali, but eventually I have shifted. So those kind of things. So, so I think it's very key to have innovation, development, the private sector have to access information easily to be able to address different challenges. So there are other aspects I understood about the accuracy. So your concern was that if I get data from BK and it could be different from I&M, how do I make sure that that information speaks the same?
And how they can share into,
Oh,
you can
okay.
speak on, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You nod if I got it right. The accuracy you are saying with the limitations with some of this data, so for example, the consolidated data from, how do you still make use of it with the assurance that it's representative? Some 4 years ago, we were having a conversation with the central bank, and there were still reservations about the quality of the data. And our argument was that as much as there are quality issues, but the law of large numbers, the huge volume of this data, there's still some meaningful takeaways that you can take. Okay? So if you're talking of this big data, which by and large will never be perfect, okay? I think for me it's an issue of the capacity to be able to take out some nuances out of the data. Some things won't make sense. You have to compare them and see consistency of some of those indicators. And if there's so huge variations in consistency, then obviously so I think one way to test is consistency of what you're seeing in the data. If it's more like within the same ranges, I would not apply the same statistical, confidences and all that with the big data. No, it's going to be a little different. There are still workaround methodologies to give assurances about this. But there were cases with the mobile data which were analyzed around uptake, and there was so meaningful information that came out of that data. I think SEMFRI was involved, and the central bank and RURA. It is possible, basically, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to have 90% confidence. No, it's more for me how you see it's consistent. The second question was, I think if I heard you, was about, let's say if BK and MTN, there was a bilateral partnership, but this data can still be meaningful to others, or is it? Yeah, I think that's a tricky one. That's one which we would have to have conversations. I think if a case is made that what BK did and another person did there, at the end of the day, if it can be aggregated together so that BK and MTN don't feel like we're the only ones providing, but how do we also tap into what others have done, then it's feasible. But I think we can say there isn't very clear guidance as of now, and I note it as something we can engage on with the central bank and see what has to be done. But I think in Rwanda, there's still room for guidance, for clarity, for some bit of nudging to what's ideal, what's public, what can serve everyone. We haven't really reached levels where it's so complicated like in other markets. So maybe now is a wake-up call for us, Wilson, to see how that kind of guidance is. With the means of ICT, with the likes of RISA as well, I think that something can be done. We take note of it.
Thank you very, very much. And it sounds like it's an opportunity for that collaboration between private sector and regulators and government, and the demands, the things that you're seeing in your business, the needs that you have. We have a very responsive government. We have a very responsive public sector. We can work together on those. So thank you for those questions. And yeah, it's an exciting time for innovation. With that said, we're running a little bit behind time. I think this is a perfect time to wrap it up. Please give a very, very warm, hearty applause to our panelists. Thank you very, very much. And please feel free to engage, ask the questions you were unable to ask or were too shy to ask right here. And if I may now invite our panelists to come down from the stage. Thank you. And invite our closing remarks from Agnes Uwanyigira, the Chief Programs Officer of Access to Finance Rwanda, responsible for designing a lot of these programs that you're seeing and financial sector initiatives, to just close us off, and then we will move on to our networking cocktail. Thank you. To our guests online, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully next time.
Thank you, Olivia, and no gushimira bari abamfashije kubiha kujya hejuru kujya mbe muremure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Access to Finance Rwanda, I would like to thank you again for your presence today, for listening. It's late and you listened, for your questions, for your insight. I'm hoping as we wrap up, that really we are all convinced that investing in data analytic capabilities is a no-brainer. It has been a very rich discussion and inspiring around data. I love data. And I would really want to thank the panelists and the speakers who shared generously, and the participants who asked some of them difficult questions. We love difficult questions because they help us mull them over, think and rethink. There's nothing to add more. I really think if I start adding on, I will be repetitive. So you will just allow me to be brief and just close by a call for action. I was going to share a quote, but then I realized you may think FR teams is really love quotation more than data, so I'm skipping that. But I had one which was beginning by data is the new oil, so you can finish that. So I will give just half of that. So my call for action to all of us today is really to accelerate our effort, intentional effort, to unleash the power of data for our own institution growth, for a vibrant and inclusive, I'm underwriting inclusive, I hope that came out, inclusive financial sector, and especially the development of our beloved country. I do hope that you will be joining us as we continue the discussion in the foyer. There is a question, I think there's a quiz, so DJ Ivan will be coming to wherever you are. I don't think that quiz is going to go unanswered. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. You and your team, I think, are doing something absolutely fabulous. This is the quiz, the last quiz. Is that correct? If you would please, just as we did at the beginning, go to slido.com, or you can capture the QR code, enter the number, and then we will show the results. So the question is, which topic of interest in the financial sector could you suggest for our next LEAD series event? As you know, AFR has taken on this initiative for a LEAD series monthly, and it's really a fantastic way for us to come together, put our brains together, but also respond to the questions, challenges, and issues that the financial sector has. So we are very interested to see what your suggestions are here. Resource mobilization into the formal financial sector. Somebody will have to explain to me what CBDC stands for. Thank you very much, sir. Central bank digital currency, that is pertinent, it's about to happen. Insurance data analysis. Power of partnerships, okay, yeah, let's go back down and I can CBD, financial health, a financial sector that serves the poor. Importance of data. I thought we had just covered this, but perhaps a part 2 is necessary. The role of digital literacy in driving financial sector. Insurance data analysis. Insurance sector would like to have a moment. Partnerships with fintech companies. Power of partnerships in the development of the financial sector. So partnerships. Discussion of central bank digital currency. This is a number 2 again. Importance of data. Financial sector that serves the poor. So looking more into how do we create more inclusion, financial health. Can we go back up a bit? I think there's some that I've missed up there. It's fintech, place of innovation, strategy development and execution, awareness in informal sector and data collection. Awareness in the informal sector and data collection in the informal sector, if I've understood correctly. Accessibility of accurate financial data. CBDC happening again. Business partnership and sharing data. Gen AI, artificial intelligence. This is happening right now. And one of the importance of having strong data analytics is because that's what AI runs on, and we don't want to be left behind. Big data analytics processes and impact on financial institutions. Mortality data analysis. It's a little bit scary, but it's data integration amongst PFIs and blockchain. Excellent. How MFIs can fortify data protection. What have we done from here? Let's see. Use of transaction data to automate financial services lending and improve customer experience. Very good. Data localization versus cloud, vis-a-vis lowering cost of transaction. Strategy for inclusive financial sector. Partnership with insurance and banking to grow. So if I may maybe summarize what seems to be coming out, partnerships, intra-financial sector, use of data again, maybe a deep dive into data. How do we use data transactionally? How do we use data for behavioral analytics? So could you go back? Another one that I saw, the central bank digital currency that keeps coming back. And then strategy, right? Strategy for the financial sector and growth. So those look like some key topics that we, AFR team, will look in and do a deep dive. And I really welcome you to keep following AFR, keep following the LEAD series, and keep an eye out for the next series, because as you can see, it's really rich, it's really interesting. So without further ado, once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Mr. Yachu. Thank you to the team. You've done a fantastic job here. And once again, thank you for being with us, and we wish you a fantastic rest of the afternoon. Please look out for the insights from this conversation and white papers, and we look forward to seeing you once again next month. Maybe same time, same place, but do keep an eye out. Thank you very much. There are some drinks, refreshments outside. I'm sure you're all parched. Have some bitings and conversations as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Every month, the AFR LEAD series bring together financial services providers, fintechs, mobile network operators, entrepreneurs, regulators, NGOs, and more, to ideate, debate, and transmit best practices and interventions that can drive and facilitate a diverse and inclusive financial sector that delivers real value to the economy and people. Learn, engage, act, develop. LEAD series.